right, now we're good. So yeah, I just want to go over what your first week was like. So in the chat, if you could, 1 to 5, 5 being your first week was absolutely fine, 1 being it was terrible and you're not sure what's going on. If you could just give me a quick little rating. All right, Cordell, you got 4. Okay. Anyone else? 4. Okay. All right. 4. Good. All right. So not perfect, but sounds like it's going okay. Are there any concerns that you would like to address here? Anything that you're confused about with the process, need help with the process, anything along those lines? And you could just sort of say it if you'd like, if there is. All right. So I'm going to assume that means that everything is good. All right. Good. Okay. So let me share my screen with you guys, and then we'll get going. Hello. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. Okay. All right. So today, we're going to be looking at the nymph's reply to the shepherd, which is the next poem in a series of 3 poems that we started with Marlowe's work. So this is online. If you could open it, if you're on a computer or if you're on your phone, if there's a way just to have it open, we're going to be referencing it constantly. So make sure under the classroom tab, classwork tab, you open that up. So we went over this, how your first week went. Hopefully all is good. If not, feel free to let me know at some point. Just a couple observations from last week. A couple of things that I've noticed. Fewer students in general turned in their work this week versus last week. Significantly more students turned in the questions than the quick write, and then many did not properly integrate quotes into their responses, or their responses had many basic errors. So these are 3 things that when I notice them, I just kind of look out for. Make sure that you are turning in your assignments, okay? Your ability to get credit hinges on making sure everything's in. As far as doing all of the assignments, some of the assignments, of course, I would say I would love to hear from you with all of the assignments. Just make sure you're getting as much done as you can. All right. So again, remember that your ability to receive credit for this, like during this time, it hinges on your participation. Okay. So that includes your classes. So being here. So if you're here, awesome. Good job. But also make sure that your assignments get done, because that is a part of that participation piece. Okay. For this structure to work, we have to make sure that we are participating. All right. So that's my soapbox for the week. All right, so the learning targets for this week, I posted this last night in case you didn't see it. Here's what they are. I can analyze the impact of Raleigh. He's our new poet. Raleigh's word choices on the meaning and tone of the poem, The Nymph's Reply to the Shepherd. And then number 2, I can identify an element of Marlowe's poem, for example, central idea, structure, imagery, word choice, and explore how Raleigh represents this element in his own poem. So just to break this down a bit, we're going to be reading that new poem that is a direct reply to Marlowe's poem from last week. Okay. We're going to be looking at what it means, what the tone of it is. That's all important. But then ultimately, our goal for this week is to compare the 2 poems. Okay. So you're going to be doing a lot of comparison work. So you're going to want to make sure that you're ready for that. The assignments this week, we'll go into them with more detail at the end, but basically the assignments are an analysis of the poem, and then you're going to do a discussion board, and there's going to be a compare contrast. So it's pretty It's not too bad. So those are our learning targets. Any questions about them? If so,
No.
Okay. All right. Cool. Okay, so I just want to really quickly finish up the Marlowe poem. Just go over a couple things that I saw in you guys' quick writes. So here's some ideas that I pulled from your quick writes. So take a moment, look at those. The first one is that Marlowe argues that finer things come from nature. That was an idea I saw a couple times. Another idea I saw is that he creates a feeling of springtime. He does so with his imagery. His imagery is things like fields, woods, and shepherds caring for sheep. Someone said that the poem is about romantic love. I heard the poem emphasizes the speaker's relationship with his love and the natural world. I heard the relationship between, that the poem's about the relationship between humans and nature. So all of these observations that you provided in your quick writes, these are good observations. Now, what we're about to talk about for a moment is the difference between a topic and a theme, because I feel like we're still kind of confusing that. So I just want to clarify that for you. But here are just some of the things that I noticed. Are there any comments about any of these things? And anything that you would like to note? And if there is, you could always put it in the chat. Okay. All right. So you guys made good observations in your quick writes. These observations were mainly about the topic of Marlowe's poem, but very few of them really hit on the central idea or the theme. So what I want to do right now is go over the difference between a topic and a theme. And if we were in our normal class, I would say that this is a moment where you would want to take notes in your notebook. Okay. So however way you want to simulate that here, my point is that I need you really to pay attention to this next part, because this is something that we often confuse a lot. And this week, I want to make sure that we stop confusing it. All right. So really quickly, quick review: topic versus theme. All right. The topic of a piece of literature, we also call that the subject. A topic is what the text is about. Now, usually when you're talking about what a text is about, you can normally state it in one word. It's usually going to be a person, a place, or a thing. So really quickly, either in the chat or verbally, could someone tell me what the topic of Marlowe's poem is? What is the topic? Love. Okay. Cordell Carter, thank you. So a topic could be love, right? Marlowe's poem is discussing love, is talking about love. That would be a good example of a topic. Now, the issue comes when I ask you guys to discuss main idea, and a lot of us stop there with something like love or nature, and you want to go further when it comes to discussing central idea or theme. All right. So when you are discussing a theme is an author's message to the reader. Okay. It's what the author's trying to teach us. Usually a theme is going to be a generalization about life or about human beings, human behavior, something along those lines. It's just something that is a universal truth about humanity that the author is trying to make a point about. All right. So this is going to be more than a 1 or 2 word answer. Usually a theme is going to be in the form of a complete sentence. So a theme is not about a character per se. Okay. It transcends characters. It goes beyond what's happening literally in the work. And it's asking the question, why is the author writing this in the first place? Okay. So that is the difference there. So I just want to work with that for a moment. So many people said that the theme of So, oh yeah. So many people said that the theme of Marlowe is nature or love. Now, as we just discussed, those are not themes; those are topics. Those are one-word ideas. Okay. Um, the closest that people came to a theme was that Marlowe was writing about, quote, a relationship between humans and nature. Now, this is good. This here is a good start. But what I want you to take it even further. What is Marlowe teaching us about this relationship? What are we meant to learn from the passionate shepherd? I'm gonna put a link into the chat. Now, this link is to a site called Padlet. If you could open this, now I also have it on Classroom. If you could open this on your end, this is what we're going to use today as sort of a discussion tool. So when you open it, you should see something like this. Okay. Now, the way that this works is I pose a question, and this gives you a chat forum to write an answer in, but it's anonymous. So if you're one of those people who feels awkward participating normally in a class, this gives you a more anonymous way of doing so. Now, this also will allow me to post it at the end. So anything that we talk about, you're still going to keep that information. Okay. So I put the question here: what is Christopher Marlowe teaching his readers about the relationship between humans and nature and the passionate shepherd to his love? So what I'm going to ask you to do is either click on that link that I put in the chat, or click on the version of it on Classroom. Go to this site, take a couple minutes, and write out an answer to this question. Just a sentence or two. What is the theme? What is he trying to teach us in that poem? All right, so I'm going to give you guys about 3 or 4 minutes, and then whatever's up here, we will discuss. And if at any point you're having trouble accessing this, let me know. I could try to help. Give you guys another like 2 minutes. Got one answer on there. I want to see a couple more at least. It'll give us something to talk about. All right. If you still are putting your answer in, that's fine. Keep this Padlet up. We're going to use it a couple more times, but let's look at these answers. All right, so this first one, and yes, if you like an answer, you can give it a heart. That is good as well. All right, so the first one, the theme that Marlo is trying to teach us is true beauty comes from nature. Okay, so this, I would agree, is absolutely an example of a theme. Okay, it's discussing that conflict between people and nature, but it's making a stance on it. It's saying that beautiful things come from it. So 100%, I think that that's a good example of a theme. So whoever wrote that, good job. Second one, he is teaching that nature could make the relationship stronger between two people. I also agree that that is an example of a theme. So what I would imagine, if you were to expand on this answer, you might talk about the way that nature ties the two characters in the poem together. So that's good. The theme is that Marlowe's trying to teach us is that everything is better from nature. Okay, this one I feel needs a little more clarification, but this also has the kernel of a theme in there as well. So it's not just a one-word thing. It is trying to explain to us what Marlowe is trying to explain to us, trying to show us. So good. This one here, Marlowe is teaching his readers nature can help find love. Again, that is an example of a theme. That's good. The theme Marlowe is trying to teach is a relationship between humans and nature. Okay. Yes, I mean that's what we had here, but again, like I said here, I want us to go a little bit farther. What about the relationship is he trying to teach us? So, not a bad answer, right? Definitely one that there's a lot to talk about, but I feel that it's too broad. Okay. But good job. Christopher Marlowe is teaching the readers of naturalistic. Okay, so I don't really know what that means. This one here needs a little more clarification. Okay. I'm not exactly sure what that means. But that's okay. So just keep that in mind. Next one, that you can make or do things with nature, I guess. Okay. Not as eloquent as I would like, but there's an idea there. I think that there's an idea in there that you can expand on. Would I say that this is a properly formatted theme? No, but there's definitely an idea there that you can develop. Okay. He's trying to teach us how nature can help find peace and love. Okay, good. That is also a theme. Okay, so we have all of these examples. All of them, to some extent, has thematic elements or straight up is a theme. Okay, so when we're doing our quick writes and things like that, right? And when I'm asking what the central idea is, what the theme is, these are the sorts of things I want you to write about. These are the sorts of things I want you to talk about. These all are good. So all are really good. So no matter what your opinion of Marlowe's poem is, we understand that the poem is about nature. It's about the way people interact with it. And I think we all can agree that Marlowe develops that relationship from a positive point of view, right? He's very positive about nature. So today, we're going to be looking at a poem by Sir Walter Raleigh. All right. And Sir Walter Raleigh lived during the same time as Marlowe. He wrote a poem that was a response to Marlowe's. Okay. And he called that The Nymph's Reply to the Shepherd. So here's the poem. I posted a copy online, so you do have that. Make sure you have that open. I'm going to read this, As I read it, I want you to think about the similarities that it has to Marlowe. I also want you to think about what questions you might have about it. Okay, because we're gonna really break this down as a class. We're gonna really go over the main ideas so you guys are prepped for the assignments this week. All right. So this is called the nymph's reply to the shepherd. And the poem goes, if all the world and love were young, and truth in every shepherd's tongue, these pretty pleasures might me move to live with thee and be thy Louvre. Time drives the flocks from field to fold, when rivers rage and rocks grow cold, and Philomel becometh dumb, the rest complains of cares to come. The flowers do fade in wanton fields, to hayward winter reckoning yields. A honey tongue, a heart of gall, his fancy spring, but sorrows fall. Thy gowns, thy shoes, thy beds of roses, thy cap, thy kirtle, and thy posies, soon break, soon wither, soon forgotten, in folly ripe, in reason rotten. Thy belt of straw and ivy buds, the coral clasps and amber studs, all these in me no means can move, to come to thee and be thy Louvre. But could youth last, and love still breed, had joys no date, nor age no need, then these delight my mind might move, to live with thee and be thy Louvre. All right, so that's the poem. Now I want to give you a minute, look through it, and I want you, if you have any questions, if there's any word you're not sure about, or anything that's confusing you, put it into the Zoom chat. Okay, I'm going to give you about 2-3 minutes. Any questions, any observations, put them here, and then we will go over them. Give you another minute. Again, if there's any words or phrases you need me to discuss, put those in the chat, please. All right. If anything comes to mind as we are talking about these two questions here, then feel free to put it in there or speak up. All right, Carter. So his poem is the opposite of Marlowe's poem. Could you unmute yourself and just sort of explain what your thought process is there? Carter. Are you there?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
So basically, what I'm saying is, you know how Marlowe's poem is talking about how nature is like the best type of beauty.
Right.
Is this poem like kind of like counteracting Marlowe's poem, saying how like, okay, urban life is also just as beautiful as nature?
Absolutely. So it is definitely responding to that claim that nature is this all-encompassing wonderful thing. It's responding to the pastoral part of Harlow's poem. So yes, he is saying that maybe nature isn't all it's cracked up to be. And our job in reading this is to figure out exactly what about nature he's pointing out is maybe flawed. So yes, I agree that this is in opposite. Um, and we're gonna investigate that more this week. So good job. Chloe, Philomel. Okay, so Philomel is a figure in Greek mythology. So this would be an example of an illusion. Philomel is a woman, and she turned into a bird, a nightingale, in the myth. And so whenever a poet uses the word Philomel, usually they're using it to mean nightingale, so that type of bird. And what a nightingale symbolizes is the purity of nature, right? Of virtue, goodness, things like that. So in stanza 2, when the author says, and Philomel becometh dumb, if Philomel represents nature and nature's purity, then the author is quite literally stating the argument that nature in this case becomes dumb. Okay, so to go along with what Carter was saying, sort of serves as an opposite to Harlow's poem. Now, the other thing I want to go over is a nymph. Does anyone know what a nymph is? So a nymph is a woman. No, okay. So a nymph is a woman. It's just like a beautiful woman. There's a lot of like seductive connotations there with that word. So yeah, it's just basically a woman replying to the shepherd. All right, so there's a couple questions I have that we're going to discuss as a class about this poem. And then once we discuss it, we should be pretty good to wrap up. Okay, I'm going to put these questions in here into Padlet. We're going to go through it one at a time. I want to get as much participation as possible. Again, it's anonymous, so no pressure if you don't feel like your answer is up to snuff. But the first question I want to look at is, from whose point of view is this poem being told? So I'm going to pop this in here. From whose point of view is the poem being told? So if you could go back on to Padlet, type your answer in. Who is the intended audience? That's what we're looking at. Give you like a minute. And the quicker we get these done, the quicker we'll be all set for the day. So. All right, so we got some answers here, and make sure that you mute yourself if you're not, please. I could always go and do it as well. All right, so whose point of view is the poem being told? Who's the audience? So the shepherd's lover's point of view we have right here. We got the shepherd. The intended audience, might be the shepherd, and we have the women. Okay, so this question kind of had two parts to it. Whose point of view is it being told? Who's the audience? I agree that the shepherd's lover's point of view is absolutely the point of view that we're looking at. Whoever put this down, if you could, if you'd like to tell me how you know that, I think that would be helpful. So how do we know it's the shepherd's lover's point of view, even if you didn't put the comment down? How do we know? If someone would like to unmute and speak up, that'd be cool. How do we know it's the lover's point of view? There's someone who knows. So how do we know that it's the lover's point of view? It's absolutely true that it is. But how do we know?
Don't we know because it's like the title?
Okay. What about the title?
Since it's replying to the shepherd, the only from the first poem we read, the
Right.
only way it will reply is if it's the lover.
Absolutely. So in Harlow's poem, we only had those two. We can call them characters, right? We only had those two people. So because this is a reply, like you said, it has to come from the lover. Good. Plus, we have the word here, nymph, right? And that word means a woman, right? And the only woman that we saw in Harlow's poem was the lover. So good job there. And the intended audience replied to the shepherd. So again, you could look at the title to know the answer to that. Answer, of course, is shepherd. So good job there. All right, good work. Let's look at this one. What relationship does the title? Well, no, we already just kind of talked about that. Chloe mentioned it. So the relationship is that this poem is a reply to Harlow's poem, so they are related. And Carter touched on this too. These poems are opposites, right? So that relationship is one of being a reply. So let's skip down to this one here. So this question: why begin the poem with the word "if"? And how does this choice impact the meaning and tone of stanza 1? So I want you to look at stanza 1. So stanza 1 again. If all the world and love were young, and truth in every shepherd's tongue, these pretty pleasures might me move to live with thee and be thy love. So why does Marlowe begin that with the word if? And how does this impact the meaning and tone? Put your thoughts down on the Padlet, and we'll go over them in a few minutes, in about 2 minutes. Give you about 1 more minute. All right, let's take a look at what we got. And again, I do really appreciate the participation. It does make this more interactive and a little more fun for me, at least. So good job. All right, so why begin the poem with if? Let's see what we got. First answer here is I think he begins the poem off with if, because if things happened differently, it can change the outcome. Okay, we have if means there's a possibility. Third response, he began the poem with if because he's not sure what the outcome will be. He starts with the word if to show how things can happen in a different way. We have by beginning the poem with if, it would impact the meaning and tone by him not knowing the outcome. Okay. So what I see common in all these answers is this idea of doubt, right? This is the idea of doubt and skepticism. So I'm actually going to put that here. All these answers touch on a sense of doubt and skepticism. So if we turn that into a tone, you could argue that it is a skeptical tone. It is a doubtful tone. Now, why do you think the poet would do that? So if the poem's trying to cast doubt from the very first line, what do you think it's trying to cast doubt on? Keeping in mind that this is a reply to Marlowe's poem. So if someone would like to unmute, they could give me some input. What do we think the poet's trying to cast doubt on?
Is he trying to cast out on love?
Huh?
Is he trying to cast out on love?
Okay, so he might be trying to cast out on the love that Marlowe's talking about. Good. I think you could also, if you scroll back up when we were talking about theme, I think that you could make the argument that he's casting doubt on really any one of these themes that Marlowe is discussing. So we have our skeptical, our doubtful tone, and that kind of gets us started, boom, like right from the beginning. All right, let's see here. Let's look at this one. Time, because this is interesting. The way that the nymph is describing time. So the question is, how does the nymph describe time in stanza 2? What effect does this have on the tone of stanza 2? So let's go back and look at stanza 2. Stanza 2 says, time drives the flocks from field to fold, when rivers rage and rocks grow cold, and Philomel becometh dumb, the rest complains of cares to come. So we have this idea of time. How is time being described in this stanza? And what impact does this have on the tone of stanza 2? Give you a couple minutes, put your answers in the Padlet, and we'll go over it. And after this question, we'll probably only do like 2 more. Give you another minute. Make sure we get something down on the Padlet so we got something to talk about. How does the nymph describe time? All right, we have our answer. Good. So it shows how time will change, which means things may be different. All right, this is good. This idea that time will change. So sorry for kind of jumping in there. So if you look here, time drives the flocks from field to fold. So flock, we can assume they're probably talking about sheep, something like that. It's moving them from field to fold. So we see a change there, right? They're going from the field to the whole group, right? When rivers rage and rocks grow cold. Now, if you have something outside, right, something warm, it grows cold with time, right? So the time here is what's the word? It's a word I'm thinking of. So the author's using time here to denote this change, right? To denote that over time things are not going to remain the same. Okay. And this is true throughout the poem. If you look here in stanza 4, thy gowns, thy shoes, thy beds of roses, thy cap, thy kirtle, and thy posy soon break, soon wither, soon forgotten. So keep doing that. So there's this change here that all of your earthly possessions are not going to always remain the same. They will eventually break. They will eventually be worn down. They will be forgotten. All of these things happen with time. Right? So time in this case determines those changes. All right, so good job there, whoever put that comment. All right, I accidentally kind of gave this away here. All the pretty pleasures is going to change them, right? So the pretty pleasures that they talk about, the flowers fade. The gowns, the shoes, the beds of roses, those are going to break. Those are going to fall apart if you just give enough time. So we kind of already answered that. So time is going to hurt all of these pretty pleasures. It's going to break them down. Now, one thing we can talk about is tone. What tone does that create? So I'm going to put that here. If time breaks everything down, what tone does this create in the poem? So tone word, I just need one or two words. What's the tone of the poem, keeping in mind that time's going to destroy everything, all of the nature, all of the physical possessions? What tone are we looking at? Give you like a minute for that. That should be quick.
Bro, we supposed to be on that website or something?
Yeah, it's if you go on the classroom page, it's like right here.
All right.
right, so we got heartbroken. I would like to see one more at least if we can. Just so that we have something to compare it to. Sadness. Okay. All right. So looking at tone, if you got something else, you could put it in there. That's fine. So we got two potential tones here. We got heartbroken and then let's say sad as opposed to sadness. All right. So both of those are negative tones, right? They're not positive, happy things. So I think that one thing we can all agree on is that the poem of this, or sorry, the tone of this poem is going to be negative, right? So it's a negative tone. I think heartbroken, I think you could absolutely make the argument for that. Sad, I think you could pick a more specific word, but I think that's good. Good. Yeah, so as long as the tone that you choose is negative in nature, I think that you can make an argument there. Oh, I got another one. Sorrowful. Good. A sorrowful tone. I think you can make that argument as well. It's very good. All right. Let's look at something real quick. We're almost done. Let's look at this one here. So the question is, what relationship does the nymph describe between youth and love in the final stanza? How does this relationship connect to the effects of time Raleigh describes in stanzas 2 through 5? All right, so if you look at our final stanza, but could youth last and love still breed, had joys no date nor age no need, then these delights my mind might move to live with thee and be thy Louvre. So in that stanza, he's talking about youth. What relationship is there between youth and love in that stanza? How does it connect to the effects of time? I'm going to leave this one up here for about 3 minutes. Please put your answers down on the Padlet. I'll keep it up here so you can see the poem, and then we'll discuss. One more minute. All right, let's take a look at what we got. Okay, so again, the question was, what relationship does the nymph describe between youth and love in the final stanza? How does this relationship connect to the effects of time? Raleigh describes in stanzas 2 through 5. All right, so first answer, over time, being together, things start feeling different. As you get older, you probably won't feel the same. So this idea of change, okay? We got someone who says, I assume I don't know. So we're just going to get rid of that real quick. No offense. All right. Next one. The relationship is that if you are young, you can still love someone, but as time, I assume, passes, things will not be the same. Okay. Once you get older, your thoughts on love will be different from when you were a kid. Love shifts as you get older. Okay. So all these answers have something in common. Is this idea of change, right? So I assume I'm so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what all these are saying that is that as your youth fades, then the love that you felt maybe won't fade, but it's going to change. So if I got that wrong, let me know. But I think that that's the implication with those answers. That as you get older, that love changes. I think that that's a good relationship. And I think that the poem does emphasize that. That idea that youth and love are connected. That love is almost something that is for people who are young, right? So it says here, but could youth last and love still breed? Had joys no date nor age no need. So it's saying here, if you could be young forever, if you could love forever, if happiness had no expiration date, if you didn't need things as you got older, then these delights my mind might move to live with thee and be thy Louvre. So in the end here, there's this possibility. The author's saying, or sorry, the speaker saying, you might change, you might move my mind, you might change my mind if these things were true. But can youth last forever? Can love last forever? I mean, I think most of us would say no, right? So there's sort of a bit of sarcasm here, right? The tone becomes a little sarcastic in that they're saying, well, if that's true, I'll believe you. But we all know that that can't be true, right? So till the end, this poem maintains its skepticism, its doubt. All right, good. So we're almost out of time. Let me just go over really quickly. Don't leave yet because I have to take a screenshot for attendance. But this was good. All right. So I'm gonna go over what just really quickly what you're doing this week. We talked about this, so we're good there. But here's this week's work. So here's your quick checklist. If you haven't yet, read the materials on Classroom. I included the tone word sheet and in integrating quotes handout just as references to help you. There's not an assignment that requires them, but I highly recommend that if you struggle on either of those two things, integrating quotes is you take a quote and you're putting it into your own writing. If you struggle with that, look at that. It'll take like 5-10 minutes out of your day, and I think that you could really benefit from it. I think everyone can. You got assignment 4, which is a discussion board. It's due on Friday. Now, with discussion boards, I need you to have an original post and 2 responses. Okay, so if you post early like Kylan did, make sure you check back later in the week to reply to 2 of them. Half of your grade is for your original response, half of your grade is for the reply. Besides that, we have assignment number 5. Assignment 5 is compare contrast. So we kind of did some of that here. So hopefully the discussion that we had here kind of prepared you for it. But you're going to compare Marlowe and Raleigh's poems. Okay. So this discussion thread, it's my birthday. And whose birthday is it? Whoever that is, let me know. I will post this online in like a PDF form, so you guys will have a copy of this. feel free to use this as a resource as you guys are completing your work. All right. Are there any questions? Anything that needs to be addressed before we end? Let me just stop sharing my screen. Let me make sure I have this all set. Take a screenshot. Okay. Real quick, if you guys have or can turn your camera on, it would be nice to see that you guys are in fact alive. Hello. How we doing?
My fairy tale.
What's up, Brendan? How's it going?
Oh.
Hey, we about to be tea in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
We
How's
about
it
to
going,
be
you
tea.
guys? It's nice to see you guys.
Yeah, bro, we about to be tea.
Hey, Brendan,
I'm actually so surprised to see Brendan here, actually.
Hey, it's my birthday.
Oh, it's yours?
Yeah, it's my birthday.
Happy birthday. All right.
All
You guys are all set. You guys are good to go. Have a good day. Hopefully you guys get that work done. If you have questions, let me know. And I'll see you guys
See y'all.
around.
Everybody have fun in their quarantine.
All right, have a good one.